What would you do if you were put in a room with 6 other people and told that only one of you would be walking away with $1,000? All you have to do is reveal your deepest, darkest secrets. Now, obviously, there's a catch to this because there's always a catch. The person winning the $1,000 will have to be decided by you. You all listen to each other's sob stories and then decide on who you think deserves the money the most. Oh, and the real kicker, you're going to be filmed the entire time. Because there's nothing quite like being on camera while people you don't know rip you to shreds for no reasons, am I right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Get out! Yes, get!
There's no way this could possibly end well. Money tends to bring out the absolute worst in people, and adding a camera to the mix definitely isn't gonna help. At the very least, it's going to be cringy as hell, and at its worst, it's gonna be a complete mess. And you would be right on both counts. A YouTube channel by the name of Cut has made a whole series of these videos. They get a group of people to come into their studio, promise them $1,000, and then make the contestants listen to each other's sob stories. And then at the end, they pick who they think deserves the money the most. And every single one of these videos is a complete mess. But there is one video that rises above them all and is honestly one of the cringiest things that I have ever seen. And I don't think it's just me that feels like this, because what makes this video so much more interesting than the others is the like to dislike ratio. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. The only one that gets even remotely close to this one is the video about the 7 seniors. Even then, the ratio isn't this bad. And well, they haven't had to turn the comments off on any of their other videos either. I guess that's just what happens when you get a group of people who are extremely unlikable and put them in the same room without any kind of supervision. Before I say anything else, can you make sure that you've subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell? You don't want to miss any of our other videos, I promise. Okay, with that out of the way, you might be wondering, what exactly makes this video so much worse than all the others? I think the answer to this question is actually pretty simple. Within the first couple minutes, it becomes glaringly obvious that everyone involved is in for a bad time. Up until this point, everybody has just been joking around about star signs and bank balances, trying to break the ice a little bit, because remember, these people didn't know each other at all before they started recording. But then, one of the contestants, Hodin, opens her mouth and says, "So I'm black in America, so it sucks. That's why I deserve $1,000.
So I'm black in America, so shit sucks. Okay. That's why I deserve $1,000.
Which she then almost immediately follows up with, "What if everyone who's not black leaves as a form of reparations?"
What if everyone who's not black leaves as a form of reparations?
Holy shit! It draws a clear line in the sand that lasts for the rest of the video. On one side, we have the 3 black contestants, Hodin, Chris, and Shakira, and on the other side, we have, well, everyone else, which includes 2 other racial minorities, Hila and Abby. Abby is white passing, sure, but she's also Latina. And when she points this out to the others, they immediately blame her for not telling them that instead of just apologizing for making their own assumptions. How hard is it to say, "I'm sorry"? Look, I just did it. I'm sorry. It's so easy and so cathartic. Now don't worry, I'll get into the way they treated Hila, but for now, I'll just say that they pretty much ignore the fact that she's a person of color. They don't mention it at all, and in fact, seem to just treat her as if she's white. As one commenter points out, Asians aren't treated as minorities and are often seen as white people. This video just proves that. The change in mood is immediate. It becomes super obvious that Hodin, Chris, and Shakira are going to spend the rest of the video being super fake woke about stuff. If you're not entirely sure what I mean by fake woke, then here's Urban Dictionary's definition for you, a very credible source.
Stop it. Get some help.
Seriously, guys? We're going with the Urban Dictionary? Okay, I'm just gonna read it then. When you try to position yourself as woke to impress the people around you, or when you actively go against facts and science to push your ideology. People tend to get pretty defensive about it when they get called out. If they're part of a minority group, whether that's race, sexuality, or whatever, they fall back on that as a reason for why they're right, even if the person calling them out is in the same group. And this is exactly what these guys do throughout the entire video.
Well, just as I thought, trash.
Time and time Again, they use the fact that they're black, and in Chris's case, a gay man, to avoid some pretty valid criticism. Keep that in mind because I will come back to it. It starts off when they vote off the first contestant, Joe. The reason they give in the video is that he suggested they give the $1,000 to charity. So obviously, that means he doesn't really need it like some of the others do. But Hila has spoken out about her experience during shooting, and she remembers a very different version of events. According to her, they'd already decided to make Joe their first target before shooting even started. Their reason being that he's straight, white, cisgendered, male, which obviously means that he has never struggled in his entire life.
But essentially, it's because he was a straight white male. So some felt that he had literally virtually no struggles whatsoever.
They hadn't even spoken to him, and they'd already decided that he was the enemy, which meant that they weren't willing to listen to him when he was trying to be a voice of reason during later rounds. He comes across as the most rational person of the group a lot of the time, and he rarely says anything, but for some reason, he constantly gets accused of things he hasn't ever done. The way that Joe was treated throughout the whole video is honestly kind of shocking. He was repeatedly told to shut up, and that his opinion didn't matter. And at one point, Hoden told him to stop antagonizing her, even though he'd been responding to something she'd said. See what I mean about deflecting the blame to avoid criticism? Throw enough buzzwords out there to deflect the attention from yourself, and eventually, people will stop trying to argue with you. But I think the most embarrassing part of this entire video is the way that this group of grown adults treated Hila. At the time of recording, she was a 19-year-old single mom who had just bailed her parents out for around $10,000 on top of being a full-time college student. She was by far the youngest person there and was probably the person who needed the money the most. Instead of being even remotely sympathetic to her situation, these people mocked her and belittled her for it. Chris literally told her at one point that she didn't deserve the money because she'd decided to have a baby in the first place. Ironic, coming from a man relying on his husband to pay the bills, the lack of self-awareness really jumps out with some of these people, don't it? When they voted her out, they started making fun of her for crying. Not only that, but they also thought it would be super fun to criticize her for not turning her situation into some kind of sob story. I'm not even exaggerating. That is literally something they say to her. Hoden starts it off by saying,
Yeah, you had one thing that none of us do as a child.
Chris then immediately latches onto that and starts making fun of things she could have said to make herself more sympathetic. Stuff like,
You could have played that baby car. My baby ain't got no diapers. My baby ain't got no wipes. I'm out of gas bill.
Imagine having such little empathy for other people that you think it's okay to laugh at someone until they start crying and have to leave the room. How do you not immediately start reevaluating your entire life at that point? Okay, look, I know that a lot of this has been about race, and I'm not trying to be deliberately antagonistic here. I'm definitely not trying to say that we're not allowed to talk about their experiences and how being a person of color in the United States has affected them. That's an important discussion to have, and it is something that needs to be talked about more. And I'm glad that people are in a place where they feel more comfortable doing it. But it doesn't really feel like that's what they're doing here. And it's not just me who thinks that way either. You look at the comment section on any video about these guys, and the top comments are always about how cringy they are. Comments like this one. That video was so embarrassing to watch as a young black girl. They caused a racial division in a situation where it wasn't needed or called for. Playing the race card was a huge low. Someone else says that, as a young black girl, the whole race war thing was embarrassing. It wasn't called for, nor was it needed. There's just this underlying sense of hypocrisy throughout the entire video. The top three were always going to be in the top three because they decided at the start of the video that no one else in that room mattered. If any of the others had tried to do something like that, they would have been ripped to shreds, and rightfully so. Hoden made it to the final three, even though she only needed new tires for her car, but they laughed in Joe's face when he talked about his own car trouble and voted him out in the first round. Even though his car had a busted window and needed a lot more repair work done to it, and they laughed in Abby's face for wanting to go fly to Michigan for her brother's wedding. Chris made it to the final round because he'd been unemployed for a month and didn't want to get a job to help his husband pay their rent. Not to mention the fact he rocked up wearing an Apple Watch and expected expected the audience to believe he was still struggling for cash. But Kat, who worked 3 jobs and was still struggling to make ends meet, was voted out because she already had a job, so she should just do more hair. I guess my biggest question here is there a point where it becomes too much? By deliberately creating this divide between members of the group, sympathy and empathy just completely vanished. It left the people involved looking like terrible human beings who only put themselves first. But what do you guys think? Who do you think was the worst person on the couch? Who do you think deserved the $1,000 the most? Do you think any of them made any valid points? Let us know in the comments below.